Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of Side Quests on the Fun and Games podcast. Thank you so much to Matt Storm again for having me on. My name is Eliah Stokes and I'm one of the co-hosts of Super Bracket Bros. We are a podcast that takes our favorite fictional characters of all time, puts them in a tournament of one-on-one battles, and figures out just who is the best of the best. I want to shout out Matt for guest starring on our newest season, which is our Kaiju season. We got to talk about Godzilla fighting the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Megazord, and it was a total blast. I highly recommend listening to it. The fight itself was great, but having Matt on just made it all the more better. So again, thank you, Matt, so much for asking me to be on Side Quest. I can't wait to talk about one of my newest favorite games, Chivalry 2. So, Chivalry 2 is a multiplayer medieval hack and slash action game. I know that's a lot of words, but it's essentially a Knight's Tale mixed with Call of Duty with little Monty Python and the Holy Grail sprinkled in. Chiv 2 is developed by Torn Banner Studios, published by Tripwire Interactive, and released on June 8th, 2021. You can find it on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, which is also available on the Xbox Game Pass. As I mentioned, Chiv 2 is a multiplayer game. There are a few offline options, but the bulk of this experience is going to be battling against opponents online in medieval-style melee combat. Again, imagine Call of Duty only with swords, axes, mauls, clubs, jousting, catapults, ballista, cannons, siege ramps, and a whole bunch of irreverent dark humor to boot. There are a variety of modes, such as duels, where you test your skills against an opponent in one-on-one combat. There's free-for-all, where you are thrown into essentially Thunderdome to try and kill as many people as you can before you yourself get killed, and arena mode, where you are on a small team battling another small team to be the first to win 5 rounds. But the crown jewel of the Chivalry 2 experience is Team Objective mode. This is a 64-player mode where you are either on the attacking team, trying to complete a series of objectives that progress through a massive map, or you're the defenders trying to stop them. There's such a wide variety of fun objectives that it makes you feel like you're in some kind of large-scale medieval war. Sometimes you have to push siege weapons to break through the enemy's defenses. Other times you have to plunder their cities to steal resources like golden pigs. And my favorite, sometimes you have to escort a player-controlled king through the heat of battle to reclaim the castle that you lost in a previous round. I've never played a game with as much natural spectacle as Chivalry 2. Sometimes the game, especially during the objective modes, feels like you're playing through a movie. I remember, we were doing an initial charge to attack the enemy castle, and the person next to me just got obliterated by a rock thrown by a catapult. And then, the person next to me got shot with a ballista that sent him, flying past me. And again, none of this is scripted. It just occurs naturally through the heat of battle. And it is a glorious experience that is always changing with every game. In classic multiplayer fashion, it's red versus blue. But in Chivalry, it's the Masonic Order versus the Knights of Agatha. Essentially, the Masons versus Agatha. These factions are mostly just for flavor, but they give you lots of options to customize your character. You want to look like a regal knight, trimmed with gold armor and battling with a devastating longsword? You can do that. You want to look like some barbarian, someone who goes sleeveless while wielding a massive two-handed axe in the heat of battle? You got it. Or maybe you just want to run in battle looking like the court jester who lost his way and is whacking people with a literal stick. Hey, go off. You can do that. There's so much room for expression that makes going into the battlefield all the much better. Before you hop into a game, you first have to pick your class. There are 4 classes in Chivalry 2, each with 3 specializations, meaning that there are over 12 different ways to play the game. There are knights, who are your main attack force. They have tons of health and have access to some of the hardest hitting weapons in the game. This is probably going to be like the class you first play as because, they're the knights. They're the big heavy hitters. You got your swords, your long swords, your two-handed axes, your battle axes. It's lots of different options. They're sort of the, if your team doesn't have a lot of knights, you're kind of screwed. So definitely try the knight. There's so much fun. Opposite of the knight are the vanguards. They have much less health than the knights, but they're much, much faster and have access to more stamina, meaning that they can last longer in a fight. This is the knights are my most played class, but vanguards are my second because I just love the way they play. They have this weapon called the Messer, which is a two-handed sword that, it just feels so good to play with. It's so fun. And between the Knight and Vanguard, you have the Footmen, who are kind of the utility class. They can build various structures that shape the battlefield. They can heal teammates with heal packs in a pinch. And they also have access to the longest weapons in the game. I'm talking about halberds, pole hammers, spears. They are so hard to deal with at range. They are keeping the enemy at bay. Games can be made or break with depending on how the footmen play. And lastly, and most controversially, we have the archers. They are the weakest class in the game with no close combat abilities, but they can shred you from far away with a volley of arrows, which has made me rage quit more matches than I care to admit. I remember trying to, you can level, so each of the classes you level up to access more weapons. And the archers were the last class I leveled up, and it was hard. I was struggle busting to try and unlock the archers, but it's rewarding because at the end you unlock the war bow, and it just fundamentally changes the way you play the game. Again, all 4 of these classes have 3 specializations, numerous options for primary and secondary weapons, and their own abilities, which can turn the tide of battle. I'm talking like you have the war horn, which gives a mass heal to your team. So if you're charging something, that just gives you like the extra oomph to like take a sight. There are oil pots, which are essentially like the Molotov bombs in other games, which can burn your enemies and make objectives harder to take. Yeah, there's just a whole bunch of stuff you can do outside just swinging your sword that plays into like the deep combat. There's a lot more strategy that goes on than just swinging your sword, which makes it really fun. What I love most about Chivalry 2 is that it's a simple game. There are no ranked modes. There's no competitive playlist. You can hop in and out of any game at any time. If you lose a match, you don't lose your ranking. You simply queue up for the next match, press your battle cry button, and do the whole thing over again. It's a refreshingly low-stakes multiplayer game, which has made Chivalry 2 my go-to game to play at the end of the day. It's just fun to just hop on Discord with some friends, boot up Chivalry 2, and just swing. Like, it's so enjoyable, and it has a mindless quality to it, but not so mindless that you're not engaged. There's this deep combat system where you're parrying and blocking and sidestepping and doing all sorts of maneuvers to try and defeat opponents that keeps you engaged. But after a while, it sort of becomes second nature to you. So once you achieve that, it's so satisfying that, I'm talking to my friends on Discord while engaging in Mortal Kombat with somebody, and, you come out on top, and it's just like, all right, now for the next one. It's a very addictive experience that sort of compounds your enjoyment the more hours you put into it. And again, it's a simple game. You queue up for a match, you play the match, and then the match ends, and then you go on to the next one. There's no like system, you don't need to unlock stuff to enjoy the game. You can just keep playing it and you'll unlock stuff naturally. So I want to talk about Chivalry 2 as a live service game. It is live service. There are battle passes, cosmetics, and in-game purchases, but a lot of it is in the background and doesn't really get in the way of the game itself. They're all cosmetics. There's no like special classes, no special weapons that are behind a paywall. You just get them from playing the game, and you can unlock them in a reasonable amount of time. I've done it. It's not as much of a slog as other games are. In fact, if you try to purchase the in-game currency, you'll get a message saying that while it's appreciated, it's not necessary for the Chivalry experience. The devs know that they are making a game with live service elements rather than a live service with game elements, which we see in a lot of other new releases, which is so greatly appreciated. I really commend Torn Banner Studios and Tripwire Interactive for continuing to do that through like the second year, 2 years in the game's life cycle, which is just super appreciated. If you do choose to get Chivalry 2, know that there is a learning curve. The first 15 hours I played in Chivalry 2 was some of the most frustrating experience I've ever had playing a game. I ran into battle and just got killed. I would just be dunked on by people with higher ranks than me. I was getting killed by shovels and rocks and other just bric-a-brac that people would grab and throw at me because they knew I was a noob. And it was so frustrating. Like I said, I rage quit quite often. I remember one time I lost probably like 3 straight one-on-one encounters, and I uninstalled the game, but I sat there stewing, and I was like, nope, not like this. So I reinstalled it and went right back into the fray. And the reason I kept playing it was because I knew there was a deep system to Chivalry 2 that I wanted to get better at. I wanted to get good at, because there, like I mentioned, there's the deep mechanics about stamina management and timing with blocks and parries and knowing when to swing to hit like headshots and attacking limbs so your enemy stops their attack. It's despite its chaotic and silly tone, Chivalry 2 is a game with deep mechanics that once you get better at them, makes the whole game so enjoyable. I remember one game recently where I had over 40 kills and I was just laughing. Like, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is amazing. Another one, I remember I was dueling an opponent. I was probably like rank 50 and they were like rank 200 and I got them. I battled them in one-on-one combat and I beat them with a messer. And I remember they sent me a message in chat saying, great job. And I was just like, oh, it felt so good. So yeah, the barrier to entry for Chivalry 2 can be a little rough, but if you stick with it, it's such a rewarding experience. You can look back on, all those 40 kill games or beating the one guy that's been killing you all game. It's just so satisfying when you put the time into it. And like, I could go on about Chivalry 2. It's been such a fun game. I've officially eclipsed 110 hours into it, and I'm probably going to put a lot more hours into it because I'm just enjoying it so much. The devs are constantly updating the game. There's new weapons and, new battle passes if you choose to go that way. The community, it can be a little spicy. so keep an eye on the chat and make sure not to engage with some of the trolls. But no, the community's fun. Everyone's in there to have a good time for the most part. And don't take Chivalry 2 too seriously. Just go in, have some laughs, throw some rocks at people and have some fun. And I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you again, Matt, for having me on SideQuest. This was a ton of fun. If you want to hear more of my ramblings and guffawing, check out Super Brack Bros on all your favorite podcasters. And remember, kill the archers! Thanks again for having me on. Happy gaming!
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone?
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.